How does a man get told to stand or leave in a house he paid for and still walk out calmly? What they didn't know that night was that the chair wasn't the only thing missing. The house never stopped being mine. While you're here, don't forget to subscribe, hit the hype button, and support this channel with a like, and tell us below. Have you ever faced something like this? The dining room felt smaller than it should have. Maybe it was the number of people pressed around the table, or maybe it was the way they all looked at me when I stepped through the door. My son Caleb stood near the kitchen archway with his hands in his pockets, his posture careful and measured, like someone trying to avoid stepping on a landmine. His wife Nora was arranging plates on the table, her movements quick and precise, like she was conducting an orchestra nobody else could hear. Each fork was placed with intention, each knife aligned with mathematical precision. I counted the chairs. 8 people expected, 7 seats arranged. The math didn't work, but nobody seemed concerned about it except me. "Hey, Dad," Caleb said. His voice was flat, careful, stripped of the warmth I remembered from years ago. He didn't move toward me, didn't extend a hand, didn't smile, just acknowledged my presence the way you might acknowledge a delivery driver at the door. "Merry Christmas," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Yeah, Merry Christmas." He glanced toward Nora, then back at me. "Glad you could make it." The words were right, but the delivery was wrong. Too formal, too distant, like reading lines from a script he hadn't bothered to memorize properly. Nora glanced up from her arrangement. Her smile was sharp and brief, the kind that appeared and vanished in the same breath. "Oh, Jace, you made it." Not Dad, not even Mr. Roard. Just my first name, delivered with the casual indifference you'd show to an acquaintance who'd shown up unexpectedly. "I did," I said. She set down the last fork and stepped back to survey the table. Everything was perfect. White linens that looked freshly pressed. Candles that hadn't been lit yet but stood ready in silver holders. A centerpiece made of pine cones and gold ribbon that probably came from one of those expensive home decor stores downtown. The kind of setup that gets photographed and posted online with a caption about gratitude and family and all the things people claim to value but rarely demonstrate. "Well," she said, brushing her hands together with a satisfied finality, "we're just about ready. Everyone can sit." People moved toward their chairs like they'd rehearsed this choreography. Caleb's sister-in-law took the seat near the window. Nora's brother settled into the chair closest to the kitchen. A couple I didn't recognize but who apparently knew exactly where to sit claimed 2 more spots. Everyone had a place. Everyone except me. I stayed near the doorway and waited for someone to point me somewhere, to gesture toward a chair I'd somehow missed, to acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, there'd been an oversight in the seating arrangement. Nobody did. The silence stretched. People settled into their chairs. Napkins were unfolded. Water glasses were lifted and sipped. The room filled with the comfortable murmur of people who belonged. Nora looked at me again. This time her expression was different. Not hostile exactly, just matter of fact. Clinical. The way you might inform someone that their appointment had been canceled. "Jace, we didn't set a spot for you. We weren't sure you'd come." I felt the weight of those words settle in my chest. "I confirmed yesterday." "Right, but you didn't respond to the group chat, so we figured you were busy." She gestured vaguely toward the kitchen, toward the empty space beyond the doorway where the counters and appliances lived. "There's not really room at the table, but you're welcome to stand over there if you want. Or if it's easier, you could just head out. We'll save you leftovers." The room went quiet. Not the kind of quiet where everyone stops talking at once because something dramatic has happened. The kind where people keep chewing and sipping and pretending they didn't hear what just happened. The kind where discomfort lives but nobody wants to name it. Caleb stared at his plate, fork in hand, not eating, just silent. I opened the family thread on my phone. My last message, sent 3 days earlier, asked about dinner time. No replies. Scrolling up, I saw the details had been handled in another chat. One I wasn't in, one created without me. I glanced at the chair beside me, the pale blue cushion I'd bought when I replaced the dining set 2 years earlier. The same table I'd assembled myself. The same house I'd signed for when the future still felt open. "No problem," I said evenly. I'll head out." Nora's smile softened, relieved. "Thanks for understanding, Jace. Really appreciate it." I walked back down the hallway without removing my coat. The front door closed behind me with a heavy, final sound. Outside, the December air was sharp. I paused, listening to muted voices inside. Laughter, plates clinking, chairs scraping. Life continuing as if I'd never been there. I walked to my car. The cracked driveway caught my eye, something I'd meant to fix. The door shut too loudly in the quiet. I sat with my hands on the wheel, breathing, watching vapor rise. My phone buzzed, a notification from the family group chat, the one I wasn't part of. I didn't open it. I knew what it would say. I backed out slowly, watching the house shrink in the mirror. Warm windows, light, belonging. I drove home in silence. Empty streets. Other people inside, together. 20 minutes later, I parked behind my townhouse. Quiet, dark, still. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. My kitchen was quiet in a way that felt heavy, not peaceful. No voices, no laughter. Just the refrigerator's hum and the wall clock counting seconds that seemed to matter only to me. I made coffee, even though it was late. The routine helped, measuring the grounds, filling the reservoir, listening to the machine gurgle and hiss. Something to keep my hands busy. I sat by the window and watched the street. A few houses still had Christmas lights up, blinking unevenly. Red, green, white, like the slow heartbeat of something fading. I poured a cup and wrapped my hands around it, feeling the heat. It hadn't always been like this. 2 years earlier, Caleb and Nora were crammed into a third-floor walk-up on the east side. Thin walls, a neglectful landlord, constant money stress. They lived on Caleb's logistics salary and Nora's sporadic freelance work. The student loans were crushing them. Nora's private art school had left her $60,000 in debt and no clear path forward. Caleb had loans, too. Nearly $2,000 a month went to payments alone, before rent or food. We met every few weeks at chain restaurants. They said things were fine. Their eyes said otherwise. Caleb thinner. Nora exhausted. Young people treading water while the pool got deeper. Around that time, I'd just paid off my townhouse. Small, quiet, 2 bedrooms, one turned into an office. Not much, but it was mine. Fully, legally, undeniably. The bigger house, the one with 3 bedrooms, a yard, and a garage, had been my home for 15 years. I bought it when Caleb was 12, when he still believed his father knew things. When we raked leaves together and spent Saturdays at the hardware store. The mortgage was gone, 30 years of payments, never missed. I still had the letter confirming it. Debt-free, owned outright, mine. When Caleb mentioned they were looking to move, trying to find something cheaper, maybe a 2-bedroom further out where rent might be $100 or $2 less per month, I made a decision. You can stay in the house, I told him over lunch at that same chain restaurant. I'll cover the taxes and insurance until you're on your feet. No rent, just take care of the place. Keep it maintained, live there. He'd stared at me like I'd just spoken in a language he didn't understand. Dad, are you serious? I'm serious. But where would you go? The townhouse works fine for me. I don't need all that space anymore. You two do. Nora had actually cried. Actual tears rolling down her cheeks while she grabbed my hand across the table. Thank you, Jace. This means everything. You have no idea what this means. I know what it means, I'd said. It means you get a chance to breathe. Here's a tightened version that preserves the progression, emotional shift, and key details while removing repetition. The move happened quickly. I packed my clothes, books, and tools and moved into the townhouse over a weekend. Caleb and Nora brought their modest furniture into the big house and somehow made it feel less empty. They painted the guest room, planted flowers, hung pictures on walls that had been bare for years. At first, it was better than fine. Caleb called every weekend. They invited me for dinners and game nights. Nora cooked elaborate meals, and we sat around the same table where I'd raised Caleb, celebrated birthdays, marked a life together. I felt useful, like I'd done the right thing, like a good father helping when his child needed it. Then the language began to change, subtle at first. We're thinking of repainting the living room, Nora said one afternoon. Not your living room, just the living room. We need to fix the fence before summer, Caleb said later. Not the fence at Dad's place, just our fence. Small shifts, easy to dismiss on their own. But they added up. I kept paying everything, or property taxes, over $3,000 twice a year, insurance, repairs, $800 for the water heater, $1,500 for a roof leak, $900 for the fence. I never mentioned the money, never asked for reimbursement. That wasn't the point. I wanted them to breathe, to get ahead, to deal with the loans and build something stable, but the arrangement stopped feeling temporary. Invitations became rare, calls shorter. When I visited, the house felt rearranged, changed without my input, decisions made without me. After a barbecue I wasn't invited to, Nora texted, "Thanks for letting us host. Everyone loved the house." Not your house, just the house. I sat in my car 3 blocks away, rereading the message, looking for some acknowledgement of reality. There was none. A week later, I ran into Owen Pike at the cafe. "How's the house situation?" he asked. "Fine," I said. Caleb mentioned renovations, bathroom tile, kitchen cabinets. Sounds like they are settling in for the long haul. My stomach dropped. Renovations. In a house they didn't own. Discussed casually, like it was already theirs. I left before he finished his coffee. That night, I pulled out the manila folder in my home office labeled House Documents. Inside was everything: purchase agreement, deed, title history, mortgage payoff letter, tax receipts, insurance policies, repair invoices. I went through them one by one. The deed was clear: sole ownership, my name, taxes, paid by me, insurance, my policy, repairs, my money. I'd treated the arrangement like a loan, temporary, but no one had ever defined the timeline. No endpoint, no agreement, no transfer, just assumptions. I stared at the documents for a long time. My coffee went cold. My house. I put the folder back in the drawer. Not yet. But soon, something would have to change. Some conversation, some clarity. Just not tonight. I turned off the light and went to bed, knowing sleep wouldn't come easily. The shift happened in stages, like watching a shoreline erode, slow enough that I didn't see it coming, fast enough that by the time I noticed, the ground was already gone. It started with the invitations, or the lack of them. Thanksgiving came and went. The date sat on my calendar like always, but no plans appeared in my inbox or texts. The family group chat stayed silent. 2 days before the holiday, I finally asked, "What's the plan for Thursday?" 6 hours later, Nora replied, "We're keeping it small this year, just us and a couple friends." Just us, as if I wasn't included, as if the man who owned the house didn't count. I spent Thanksgiving at a diner downtown that stayed open for people with nowhere else to go. Dry turkey, boxed mashed potatoes, quiet tables of people pretending not to notice they were alone. That night I ate a sandwich at home and watched a football game I didn't care about, just for the noise. Christmas was supposed to be different. Nora started a new family chat, new enough that I had to be added, and announced, "Big Christmas dinner at the house. Everyone's welcome." I replied that I'd be there. The message showed as delivered. No one responded. Still, I went. Because you always hope this time will be different. It wasn't. I was told to stand in the kitchen or leave, treated like an inconvenient guest in a house I owned, at a table I'd bought, during a holiday I was no longer part of. So I left. The week after Christmas passed quietly. I went to work every day. I'm an energy auditor. My job is to find inefficiencies, trace problems to their source, and recommend fixes. It's methodical, calming. Everything has a reason. I started thinking about my life the same way. The inefficiency was obvious. The house situation, the unspoken assumptions, the lack of clarity, that was the problem that needed correction. On a Tuesday afternoon, I was at the hardware store buying an air filter for my townhouse and some weather stripping. Small, ordinary maintenance. $30. Practical. Necessary. And a reminder of what still worked. I was loading the bags into my trunk when I heard Nora's voice from across the parking lot. "Jace?" I turned. She was walking toward me with 2 large shopping bags in her hands, the kind from the big home improvement store across town. She looked surprised to see me, like running into me at a hardware store was somehow unexpected, despite the fact that I'd been maintaining properties for longer than she'd been alive. "Hey," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "What are you doing here?" She said it like I'd been caught somewhere I shouldn't be. "Buying an air filter." She laughed, though I hadn't said anything funny. "Right, of course." She shifted the bags, the plastic handles cutting into her fingers. "We're picking up some stuff for the remodel." "Remodel?" I kept my voice even. Interested, but not concerned. Casual. "Yeah, we're finally going to redo the master bathroom. It's been on the list forever." She smiled, bright and excited. "The tile in there is ancient, probably from the 90s or something. We're thinking about putting in one of those rainfall shower heads. Really modernize the space. I'd replaced that tile 4 years ago. Spent an entire weekend pulling out the old stuff, prepping the walls, laying new tile in a pattern Caleb said he liked. Cost me almost $800 in materials alone. The tile wasn't ancient, it was practically new, but she didn't know that. Or she did know and didn't care. Either way, my work was being dismissed as outdated, insufficient, ready to be replaced. "Sounds good," I said. "Caleb's inside getting paint samples. We're thinking about doing the hallway, too. Maybe a soft gray. Something modern, you know? The beige is just so dated. The beige was neutral, classic, the kind of color that doesn't go out of style because it never was in style. I'd chosen it specifically for that reason. Modern's good, I said, my voice flat. She glanced at her phone, probably checking the time or reading a message. Anyway, I should get back in there. See you around, Jace. See you. She walked away, the bag swinging at her sides. I watched her disappear through the automatic doors of the store, then stood there in the parking lot for a moment longer. The tile wasn't ancient, the beige wasn't dated, but she'd decided it was, and she was making plans to change it. In my house? Without asking me, without even telling me. I closed the trunk and got in the car, but didn't start the engine. Just sat there, hands on the wheel, staring through the windshield at nothing in particular. The hardware store parking lot was busy, people loading lumber and bags of concrete and sheets of drywall. Everyone building something, fixing something, improving something, making their properties better. Their properties, not someone else's. I drove home slowly, observing speed limits and stop signs with unusual precision. When I got back to the townhouse, I went straight to my office and pulled out that folder again, the one with all the house documents. I spread everything out on the desk just like before. Deed, title history, tax receipts, insurance statements, repair invoices, the paper trail of ownership and responsibility. I found a calendar and flipped to the current month. I looked at the dates, considering options and timelines. Then I circled one date 3 weeks out. January 18th, a Saturday, a day when people would be relaxed and unprepared. Then I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found a name I hadn't called in years. Evan Holt, real estate attorney. We'd worked together when I bought the townhouse, and before that when I refinanced the house back when Caleb was in high school. I stared at the name for a moment, then pressed the call button. 3 rings, 4. Then a professional voice answered. Evan Holt. Evan, it's Jace roared. There was a pause, not long, but noticeable. The pause of someone searching their memory for context. Jace, it's been a while. 4 years? Something like that. How are you? I'm fine. I need advice. Real estate advice. His tone shifted slightly, more focused. I'm listening. I explained the situation. The house, the arrangement, the language shifts, the assumptions, the renovations planned without permission. Evan didn't interrupt, didn't ask clarifying questions, just let me talk until I ran out of words. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. I could hear papers rustling on his end. Then he spoke. Do you have the deed? Yes. Has anything been transferred? Any document signed giving them ownership or partial ownership? No. Any written agreement about the living arrangement, lease, contract, anything in writing? No, it was all verbal. I said they could stay there until they got on their feet. And on their feet was never defined? Never defined. More paper rustling. Then legally, it's still your house. Full ownership. They're essentially tenants, though without a formal agreement or rent payments, the legal status is ambiguous. But it's my property. It's absolutely your property, no question. But they don't think it is. No, Evan said slowly. They don't. I looked at the circled date on the calendar. What if I want to make sure they understand? Understand what, specifically? That the house is mine. That it's always been mine. That their assumptions are incorrect. Evan was quiet for a moment. I heard a chair creak, like he was leaning back to think. You want to assert ownership. I want to clarify reality. That can be done. Fairly easily, actually, since you have all the documentation. But Jace, I have to ask, what's your end goal here? Are you evicting them, selling the property, establishing a formal rental agreement? I haven't decided. I just want them to understand who owns the house. Understood, Evan said. Let's meet. I'll walk you through the options and the processes. We can prepare whatever documentation you need. We set an appointment for the following week, Tuesday at 2 in the afternoon. His office downtown, same building where we'd met years ago. I hung up and stared at the calendar again. The circled date seemed to glow on the page, though that was probably just my imagination. Not yet, but soon. Very soon, the inefficiency would be corrected. The waste would be addressed. The problem would be solved. I put the calendar away and closed the folder. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, counting down to January 18th. The bank was quiet on a Wednesday morning, the kind of quiet that comes from carpeted floors and professional discretion. I walked in just after they opened at 9, when the staff was fresh and alert, and the day's accumulation of difficult customers hadn't yet worn down their patience. The lobby was generic in the way all bank lobbies are generic. Potted plants that might have been real or plastic, chairs in muted colors arranged in careful groupings, a water cooler in the corner that nobody ever used, posters on the walls advertising loans and savings accounts and credit cards, all featuring impossibly happy people laughing at something off camera. I approached the main desk where a young woman with a name tag reading Jessica looked up with a practiced smile. "Good morning. How can I help you?" "I need to speak with the branch manager, please. It's regarding property verification." "Of course. May I have your name?" "Jace roared." She picked up a phone and spoke quietly for a moment, then looked back at me. "Ms. Quinn will be right with you. Please have a seat." I sat in one of the generic chairs and waited. The bank was almost empty. One older man at the ATM. A woman filling out deposit slips at the counter. The kind of morning where business was slow and staff had time for actual conversations instead of rushed transactions. After a few minutes, a woman emerged from an office in the back. She was maybe late 40s, wearing a gray blazer and dark slacks. Professional without being intimidating. Her handshake was firm. "Mr. Roard, I'm Marla Quinn, branch manager. Why don't we talk in my office?" I followed her back through a doorway and into a small office with a desk, 2 chairs, and walls decorated with framed photos of sailboats and motivational quotes about persistence and success. The kind of office that belonged to someone who'd worked their way up through the system and understood procedures. She closed the door, and we sat. "What can I do for you today?" I pulled out a folder and removed a single sheet of paper. "I need verbal confirmation of some information regarding a property I own, for personal records." "Certainly. Do you have the account number?" I handed her the sheet. It had the property address, the parcel number, and my account details. She took it and typed into her computer, her expression neutral and professional. The screen reflected in her glasses as she read. "This is the property on Langford Street," she asked. "That's correct." She scrolled through whatever she was reading, taking her time. "The mortgage was paid off in full 36 months ago. Current status shows no liens, no outstanding balance. Title is held solely under your name." She looked up from the screen. "Is there an issue with the account?" "No issue. I just wanted to confirm the ownership status for my own records." She nodded. "Everything's in order. The property is owned free and clear. No encumbrances. No co-owners listed on any of our documentation." "And the property tax payments? Those come from my account?" She clicked through a few more screens. "Yes, 2 annual payments, withdrawn automatically from your checking account ending in 7432. All payments current." "Insurance premiums?" More clicking. "Those appear to be paid separately, not through us. But I can see from the title work that the property has maintained continuous insurance coverage. That's typically required even after mortgage payoff." "I pay those directly to the insurance company." "That's fine, as long as coverage is maintained." She leaned back in her chair. "Mr. Roard, may I ask what this is about? You seem very thorough." "I want to make sure all my documentation is in order." "It is. Everything here shows clear sole ownership." She paused. "Are you planning to sell?" "I'm considering options. If you do decide to sell, we offer very competitive rates on bridge loans and purchasing assistance for your next property." "I'll keep that in mind." She printed a summary statement and handed it across the desk. "This shows the current status of the property. If you need any additional documentation, certified copies of anything, just let me know." "This is perfect. Thank you." We stood and shook hands again. She walked me back to the lobby, professional and courteous, probably already thinking about the next customer and the next problem to solve. I left the bank with the paper folded carefully in my jacket pocket. The morning was cold but clear. Traffic moved steadily past. People walked with purpose, going to jobs and appointments and all the places people go when they have somewhere to be. My next stop was the county records office, a low brick building downtown with a parking lot that was never quite full. Inside, the air smelled like old paper and industrial cleaner. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in harsh white light that made everyone look slightly unwell. I filled out a request form for the title history of the Langford Street property and waited at the counter. The clerk was a middle-aged woman with reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She took the form and disappeared into a back room filled with filing cabinets and computer terminals. 10 minutes later, she returned with several printed pages. "This covers the full chain of title from original sale to present," she said, handing them across the counter. "If you need certified copies, there's an additional fee." "Just the standard printout is fine." "That'll be $12. I paid with cash. She gave me a receipt, and I took the papers to a table near the window. The title history was comprehensive. Every owner going back 40 years, every transfer, every mortgage, every lien and release. The chain was clear and unbroken. My name appeared at the top of the most recent entry. Purchase date 15 years ago. Sole owner. No joint tenancy, no co-owners, no transfers since the original purchase. The mortgage had been marked as satisfied 3 years ago. No liens, no encumbrances, no clouds on the title. I folded the papers and added them to the folder in my car, which now contained the deed, the tax receipts, the insurance statements, the bank confirmation, and the title history. Everything necessary to prove ownership beyond any possible dispute. That afternoon, I sat in the cafe downtown with my laptop open. The place was half full with the lunch crowd winding down, people typing on laptops, students studying, a few people just sitting and drinking coffee and watching the world outside the windows. I opened a spreadsheet and started compiling data. Every payment I'd made on the house over the past 3 years. Property taxes. 2 payments per year at roughly $3,300 each. Insurance premiums, annual payments of just over $2,000. Repairs and maintenance, the water heater replacement, the roof patch, the fence repair, the plumbing work, the electrical upgrades, the HVAC service calls. Each entry got its own row. Date, description, amount, payment method, running total. The numbers accumulated faster than I expected. The total climbed past 20,000, past 25, past 30. 3 years of continuous financial responsibility for a property that 2 people were treating as their own. I saved the spreadsheet to my laptop, backed it up to a cloud drive, and saved another copy to a USB drive I kept in my desk drawer. 3 copies, 3 locations, no way to lose the data. My phone buzzed, a notification from the family group chat. The one I was included in now, though participation seemed optional for everyone except me. Nora. Everyone free on the 18th? We're hosting a makeup dinner at the house. Let's try this again. The 18th, the date I'd circled on my calendar weeks ago. The date that had been waiting patiently while I gathered documentation and prepared systems. Caleb. Sounds good. Owen. I'm in. 3 other replies followed in quick succession. All confirmations. All enthusiastic. All from people who thought they were going to a pleasant family dinner without any complications. I stared at the screen for a moment, considering my options. I could decline. I could stay silent. I could let the date pass and choose some other time for clarity. But the timing was too perfect. Everyone would be there. Everyone would witness. No selective memory later. No conflicting accounts. Just facts, presented to an audience, with witnesses. I typed a reply. Me? I'll be there. The message appeared in the thread with my name attached. 3 dots appeared immediately as someone started typing a response. Nora. Great. See you then, Jace. Not Dad. Not even, thanks for coming. Just acknowledgement of my presence the way you might acknowledge a coworker agreeing to attend a meeting. I closed the laptop and finished my coffee. The cafe had mostly emptied out. The lunch rush was over. Staff were wiping down tables and resetting for the afternoon crowd. Outside, the sky was gray with clouds that might or might not produce snow. The forecast kept changing. The temperature kept dropping. Winter was settling in with the kind of cold that made people want to stay inside, stay comfortable, stay in places that felt like home. I walked back to my car and sat in the driver's seat for a moment before starting the engine. The folder of documents was on the passenger seat, getting thicker each day. Everything in order. Everything documented. Everything ready. January 18th was 2 weeks away. 14 days to wait. 14 days for them to continue their assumptions. 14 days for reality to remain suspended. Then the ground would shift. Then the clarity would come. Then the inefficiency would be corrected. I started the engine and drove back to the townhouse. The afternoon stretched ahead, empty and quiet. I had work to do, reports to file, audits to complete, the normal rhythm of normal days. But the calendar was counting down. The date was circled. The systems were ready. Soon. Evan Holt's office was on the 3rd floor of a building downtown, the kind of professional space that existed in every mid-sized city. Marble lobby, elevator with mirrored walls, directory board listing lawyers and accountants and consultants who spent their days managing other people's problems. The waiting area had leather chairs that were probably expensive, but looked uncomfortable. A receptionist sat behind a desk made of dark wood, typing on a computer with the focused expression of someone who'd perfected the art of seeming busy. She looked up when I entered. Good afternoon. Do you have an appointment? Jace roared, 2 o'clock with Evan Holt. She checked her screen and nodded. He's expecting you. Can I get you any water or coffee? I'm fine, thank you. He'll be right with you. I sat in one of the leather chairs. It was exactly as uncomfortable as it looked. The walls displayed generic art, abstract shapes in muted colors that matched the carpet and the furniture, everything designed to be inoffensive and forgettable. 3 minutes later, a door opened and Evan appeared. He looked the same as I remembered from 4 years ago, tall, maybe 50, thinning hair cut short, dark suit with no tie, the kind of lawyer who dealt in procedures and documents rather than courtroom drama. Jace, he extended a hand. Good to see you again. You too. Come on back. His office was larger than I expected, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the street below. The desk was organized to the point of sterility. Computer, phone. A single legal pad with a pen placed precisely parallel to the edge. 2 chairs for clients facing the desk. We sat. He folded his hands on the desk and looked at me with the patient expression of someone who'd heard thousands of complicated situations and learned not to judge any of them. So, he said, tell me what's going on. I handed him the folder. Everything's in here. Deed, title history, tax receipts, insurance statements, payment records for repairs and maintenance. He opened the folder and began reading, methodically turning pages and making notes on his legal pad. His handwriting was precise, each note organized with bullet points and references. When he finished, he set the folder down and looked at me. This is straightforward, he said. You're the sole owner. No disputed claims, no co-tenants, no ambiguity in the documentation. That's what I thought. But you said on the phone that your son and daughter-in-law are living there and believe they own the property? They never said it explicitly, but they refer to it as their house. They make decisions about renovations without asking me. They don't acknowledge that I'm paying taxes and insurance and repairs. Evan tapped his pen against the legal pad. Verbal agreements can create complications, but in this case, you never verbally agreed to transfer ownership. You agreed to let them live there. Correct. How long has this arrangement been in place? 2 years, a little over. And in that time, have they paid you anything? Rent, utilities, property taxes? No, I've covered everything. He made another note. That actually works in your favor. There's no implied tenancy with rent payments that would create tenant rights. They're essentially guests with permission to occupy. But they think they own it. What they think doesn't matter legally. What matters is what's documented. He tapped the folder. And everything here supports your ownership. If this went to court, which I doubt it would, you'd win without question. I leaned back in the chair. I don't want to go to court. I want them to understand the reality. You want to assert ownership without legal action. Exactly. Evan pulled out a blank sheet of paper and began sketching something that looked like a timeline. Here's what I'd suggest. You present the documentation directly. No lawyers present, no formal notices, just the facts laid out clearly. You show them the deed first. That establishes legal ownership. Then you show them the tax records proving continuous payment, then insurance, then repair costs. Build the case layer by layer. What if they argue? Let them. Arguments don't change documented facts. The more they argue, the more obvious it becomes that they've been making assumptions without basis. He looked up from his sketch. The key is to stay calm. Don't let them bait you into anger or defensiveness. Just state facts and let the paperwork speak. And if they claim I verbally gave them the house? Did you? No, I said they could stay there. I never said I was transferring ownership. Then they have nothing. Verbal agreements to transfer real property aren't enforceable anyway. Real estate transfers require written documentation, deeds, titles, signatures. You can't verbally gift someone a house. He turned the paper around so I could see his timeline. Present the deed, wait for their reaction. Then present tax records, wait again, build it methodically, make each piece of evidence land before moving to the next. What about timing? When are you planning to do this? There's a family dinner on the 18th. Everyone will be there. Evan nodded slowly. Public setting, multiple witnesses. That's smart. Prevents selective memory later. Everyone hears the same facts at the same time. That's what I was thinking. One more thing. He pulled a business card from his desk drawer and slid it across to me. When you present the documentation, mention that your attorney has reviewed everything and confirmed your legal position. You don't have to say my name, just that you've consulted legal counsel. That signals this isn't impulsive. This is considered and backed by professional advice. I took the card. Thank you. Do you know what you want to happen after you present this? I haven't decided. Maybe they stay and pay rent. Maybe they leave and find their own place. I just want the assumptions to stop. Fair enough. Just be prepared for significant pushback. People don't like having their assumptions challenged, especially about something as fundamental as where they live. I'm prepared. Evan stood and extended his hand. Good luck, Jace. Call me if you need anything else. And after the dinner, let me know how it goes. We shook hands. I took the folder and left his office, riding the mirrored elevator back down to the lobby. Outside, the afternoon was cold and getting colder. The sky had that heavy gray quality that promised snow. I drove back to the townhouse and went straight to my office. The folder went back in the desk drawer, but first I removed all the documents and arranged them in presentation order. Deed on top, title history next, tax receipts, insurance statements, repair invoices, bank confirmation letter, attorney business card, everything in sequence, everything clear, everything ready. I rehearsed the presentation, speaking to an empty room. The house is legally mine. Here's the deed showing sole ownership. Here's the title history showing no transfers. Here's proof I've been paying all taxes, insurance, and repairs for 2 years. The words felt mechanical at first, robotic, like reading from a script. But I kept practicing until they felt natural, until I could say them without emotion, without anger, without defensiveness. Just facts, just clarity, just reality. I practiced different scenarios. If they interrupted, if they yelled, if they cried, if they accused. For each possible reaction, I practiced staying calm, staying factual, redirecting to the documentation. The paperwork is clear. You're welcome to review it. You're welcome to have your own attorney review it. The facts won't change. By evening, I'd gone through the presentation 20 times, each time smoother, each time more confident, each time more certain that this was necessary. I looked at the calendar. January 18th was 11 days away, less than 2 weeks. The time between now and then felt both infinite and immediate. Days that would pass slowly while I waited, but that would arrive inevitably. I packed the documents back into a clean manila envelope and set it on the desk where I'd see it every day. A reminder, a countdown, a promise that clarity was coming. That night, I barely slept, not from anxiety or fear, just from the mental rehearsal playing on repeat, the presentation, the reactions, the facts laid bare in front of witnesses, over and over until the eastern sky started to lighten and another day began. 11 days to wait. 11 days for them to continue their comfortable assumptions. 11 days for reality to remain suspended in the space between truth and belief. Then everything would shift. Then the ground would move. Then the house would return to being what it had always been, mine. The morning of January 18th was cold and brutally clear. No clouds, no mercy from the winter sun that offered light, but no warmth. I woke up early, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table watching the street wake up. I'd laid out my clothes the night before. Dark slacks, white button-down shirt, a navy blazer I hadn't worn in months. Nothing flashy, nothing aggressive, just the appearance of someone who had their life together. I showered and dressed with deliberate care. The manila envelope sat on my desk. I opened it one final time and reviewed the contents. Deed, title history, tax receipts, insurance statements, repair invoices, bank confirmation, attorney card, everything present, everything in order. I packed it into my leather messenger bag. The clock showed 11:30. The dinner was scheduled for 6. I had too much time to fill. I drove to the public library and sat in the reading room. I brought a book, but couldn't focus on the words. At 2 o'clock, I gave up and left. I drove aimlessly through familiar neighborhoods until 4:30. At 5:15, I drove past the house on Langford Street. The driveway was empty, the windows were lit. I kept driving and circled the block twice before parking on the street 3 houses down. At 5:40, the first car arrived. Owen Pike's blue sedan. He parked and walked to the front door carrying a bottle of wine. 5:50, another car, 2 more people I recognized, 6 o'clock. I turned off the engine and sat in silence for another minute. Then I got out and walked up the street. I knocked instead of walking in. Nora opened the door wearing an apron and holding a wooden spoon. Jace, come in, come in. So glad you could make it. I stepped inside. The hallway smelled like roasted garlic and rosemary. Everyone's in the living room, she said. Make yourself at home. We'll eat in about 20 minutes. Make yourself at home. In my own house? I walked into the living room. Owen was there. Caleb was holding a beer and laughing. 2 other people occupied the chairs near the fireplace. Hey, Dad, Caleb said when he noticed me. Want a beer? I'm fine. I sat in the chair near the window. The messenger bag went on the floor beside my feet. Nobody seemed to notice it. At 6:20, Nora appeared in the doorway. Okay, everyone, dinner's ready. People moved to the dining room. The table was set for 9. My seat was at the far end, away from the head where Nora sat. Plates were filled, conversation started. I ate slowly, barely tasting the food. My focus was on the messenger bag beside my chair. Halfway through the meal, Owen looked at me. How's the townhouse treating you, Jace? It's fine. Must be nice having less space to worry about, he continued. Less maintenance. Nora smiled from the head of the table. We really appreciate you letting us take over here, Jace. It's been amazing. We've really made it our own, you know? Made it our own. I set down my fork. Actually, I wanted to talk about that. The conversation stopped. Attention shifted toward me. Talk about what? Caleb asked. I reached down and pulled the envelope from the messenger bag. I set it on the table. I wanted to clear up some confusion, I said. About the house. Nora's smile faded. Confusion? There seems to be a misunderstanding about ownership. The table went silent. Caleb leaned forward. Dad, what are you talking about? I opened the envelope and pulled out the deed. I unfolded it and slid it across the table toward Nora. This is the deed to the property, I said. It's in my name. It's always been in my name. Nora picked up the paper. Her eyes scanned the document. Confusion first, then comprehension, then shock. I never transferred ownership, I continued. I never signed anything over. The arrangement was that you could stay here temporarily, but the house has remained legally mine. Caleb stood up. His chair scraped against the floor. Dad, what the hell is this? Sit down, Caleb. No, what are you doing? I'm providing factual information about property ownership. Please sit down. He didn't sit. The room was watching. I pulled out the next document. This is the title history from the county records office. It shows the complete chain of ownership. My name is at the top. Sole owner. No co-owners. No transfers. I slid it across the table. Nora picked it up, her hands shaking. I don't understand, she said. You gave us this house. I let you stay in this house, I corrected. I never gave it to you. But you moved out. You let us take over. Yes, live here, not own it. I pulled out the tax receipts. I've been paying the property taxes every year. Here are the receipts, every payment from my bank account. The papers landed on the table. Here are the homeowner's insurance statements, annual premiums, all paid by me. More papers. Here are the repair invoices, water heater replacement, roof repair, fence repair, plumbing work, all paid by me. Each invoice landed with a soft sound. The pile grew. This house is mine, I said, looking directly at Nora, then at Caleb. It has always been mine. It was never transferred, never gifted, never signed over. You have been living here under an informal arrangement, but the legal ownership has never changed. The silence felt like a physical presence, heavy, oppressive. Nora set down the deed carefully. You're saying we don't own this house. That's exactly what I'm saying. But we've been living here for 2 years. Living here with my permission. That doesn't create ownership. Caleb gripped the back of his chair. This is insane. You're doing this because of Christmas? I'm doing this because you've stopped acknowledging reality. What reality? That this is my house. That I pay for it. That I maintain it. That I own it. I gestured to the documents. It's all here. Facts don't care about your assumptions. Nora's voice rose. Assumptions? You told us we could stay here. I did, and you can. But staying here doesn't mean owning it. Yeah, we've invested in this place. We've made it a home. With my money. Every major expense has been paid by me. Owen spoke up. Jace, maybe this should be discussed privately? No, I said firmly. It should be public. That way everyone hears the same facts. No confusion later. Nora laughed bitterly. Reality? You're a manipulative man who planned this whole thing. I'm clarifying what was always true, but you chose to ignore. Caleb slammed his hand on the table. Glasses jumped. You're punishing us. I'm protecting my property. By humiliating us in front of everyone? By making sure there are witnesses to the facts. Nora grabbed the deed again. You can't just do this. We have rights. You have the right to stay as long as I permit it. You don't have the right to claim ownership. We've been living here for 2 years. That creates legal residence. I pulled out another document. This is a letter from my attorney. He confirmed that I have full legal ownership and complete authority to determine occupancy. If you want to contest this, you'll need your own attorney, and you'll lose. I slid the letter across. Nora snatched it and read it, her face growing pale. You've already talked to a lawyer, Caleb said flatly. You planned this. I documented the facts and sought legal advice. It's the same thing. The facts remain unchanged. Nora looked around the table. Is anyone going to say something? Nobody spoke. She turned back to me. You're doing this out of spite. I'm doing this because you forgot whose house this is. We didn't forget anything. You gave us... I let you stay here. Permission can be revoked. So you're kicking us out. I'm making sure you understand the situation. What happens next depends on whether you can acknowledge reality. Caleb sat down heavily. He put his head in his hands. I can't believe this. It's happening because it has to. You started making decisions about this property without consulting me, treating it like it's yours when it's not. Nora's hands were shaking. We thought it was ours. You never corrected us. I shouldn't have had to. The house was in my name. I was paying all the bills. But you never said anything. The situation was clear. You chose to interpret silence as permission to claim ownership. Caleb looked up. What do you want from us? I want you to acknowledge that this house is mine, that you live here at my discretion, not by right. Fine, he said quietly. It's your house. Say it louder. His jaw tightened. It's your house. I looked at Nora. And you? She stared at me with hatred. It's your house. Good. Now we can move forward with clarity. Move forward how? Caleb asked. I gathered the documents. You can stay here under a formal rental agreement with rent payments, or you can find your own place. But the days of treating this as your house are over. How much rent? Nora asked. Market rate, $2,400 a month plus utilities. Her eyes widened. We can't afford that. Then you can't afford to live here. You're throwing us out. I'm giving you options. Stay and pay, or leave and find something you can afford. Caleb stood. You're not my father anymore. I'm the owner of this house. What I am to you is a separate question. You're nothing to me. The words should have hurt, but mostly I felt calm, clear. That's your choice, I said, but it doesn't change the facts. Nora grabbed her phone. I'm calling our lawyer. You should. They'll tell you the same thing mine did. She walked out, phone pressed to her ear. The remaining guests were frozen. Owen cleared his throat. Jace, I think maybe I should go. That's probably best. He stood and collected his coat. The others followed. Within minutes, the house was empty, except for me, Caleb, and Nora's voice, still sharp from upstairs. Caleb and I stood separated by the table and the scattered documents. Why? He asked. Why did you do this? Because it needed to be done. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. You and Nora stopped seeing me as a person. I became something to work around rather than someone to include. So you decided to destroy everything. I decided to clarify reality. He shook his head. I'll never forgive you for this. You don't have to, but you do have to acknowledge who owns this house. Nora returned, face flushed. Our lawyer says we should document everything. That's good advice, I said. Document whatever you want. The facts won't change. He said we might have a case for implied ownership. Your lawyer is giving you false hope, but you're welcome to pursue it. It'll be expensive and you'll lose. She stepped closer. You're going to regret this, Jace. Maybe, but not tonight. I picked up my messenger bag and walked to the door. The cold air outside felt sharp and clean. I walked to my car without hurrying, started the engine, backed out carefully. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror once. The house was still lit, still warm-looking, but now they knew. Now everyone knew. I drove back to the townhouse through empty streets. The night was dark and cold and utterly indifferent. The next morning, my phone was full of messages. 15 missed calls, 23 texts, 6 voicemails. Caleb had sent 5 texts, each angrier than the last. The last one, you're a monster. Nora had sent 3, all threats about lawyers. Owen had sent 1. That was brutal to watch. I deleted them all without responding, deleted the voicemails too. At 9 o'clock, Evan Holt called. Jace, I heard from Nora's attorney. That was fast. They're claiming verbal agreement, implied gift, equitable interest based on improvements. Can any of that work? No. They'd need written documentation, and improvements don't create ownership. They have nothing. What happens next? They'll send a formal letter. You forward it to me. After that, it'll quiet down once they realize they're spending money for no reason. Okay. How are you doing? I'm fine, Evan. Call me if anything changes. I drove to the house at 10 o'clock. The driveway was empty. I used my key and let myself in. The place was quiet, different from empty, the silence of people hiding. I walked through the rooms, furniture rearranged, new pictures, different curtains, small changes that accumulated, but none of it mattered. The bones were mine. I went upstairs. Nora was in the bedroom, typing on her laptop. She looked up. "What are you doing here?" "It's my house." "Get out." "No, we need to discuss next steps." "We're not discussing anything until you apologize." "I have nothing to apologize for." She stood. "You humiliated us." "I stated facts in front of witnesses." "You're enjoying this." "I'm correcting an inefficiency." "We're not a system." People who forgot basic facts about property ownership. Her hands clenched. "I hate you." "That's fine. But you need to make a decision. Stay and pay rent, or leave. You have 30 days. 30 days? We can't find a place in 30 days. That's not my problem. Either we have a formal rental agreement or you vacate. This is our home. No, it's my house that you've been living in. She grabbed her phone. I'm calling Caleb. He needs to hear this too. 19 minutes later, Caleb came in. He looked between us. What do you want? You have 30 days. Either we sign a rental agreement at market rate or you vacate. $2,400 a month? Plus utilities. We can't afford that. Then you can't afford to live here. He sat heavily. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my concern. You're really going to make us homeless? I'm giving you 30 days. That's reasonable notice. Nora spoke up. What if we just refuse to leave? Then I file for eviction. It becomes legal. You get a record that makes future rentals difficult. Caleb put his head in his hands. A week ago, we thought we had a home. A week ago, you had an informal arrangement you misunderstood. Now you have clarity. Stop talking about facts. This is our life. Your life built on false assumptions. I'm not responsible for your misunderstanding. Caleb looked up. What do you get from this? I get my property back. I get clarity. I get to stop subsidizing people who don't appreciate it. We appreciated it. No, you took it for granted. He stood. I'm not listening to this. The terms are simple. 30 days. Formal rental agreement or vacate. And if we don't, then I take legal action. You'll lose. Nora stood too. We're talking to our lawyer again. Do that. He'll tell you the same thing. Caleb turned to me. When did you stop being my father? When you stopped treating me like one. I left before they could respond. The days blurred together. I went to work, came home, ignored calls and texts, existed in calm while the storm raged around me. Evan called regularly. Nora's attorney had sent a letter. Evan responded and demolished every argument. There was talk of mediation that went nowhere. The facts were clear. They're running out of options, Evan told me. Their attorney knows they don't have a case. Let him. At some point, they'll realize they're spending money on a battle they can't win. The deadline approached. February 18th circled on the calendar, drawing closer. 2 weeks before the deadline, I drove past the house. The lights were on. People living their lives in a space they no longer controlled. 1 week before, Evan called. They want to negotiate. Negotiate what? They can't afford market rate. They're asking for reduced rent. No, they need at least 2 months to find a place. They have 1 month. They've had it since January 18th. 4 days before the deadline, Caleb texted. Caleb, we can't find anywhere. Everything wants deposits we don't have. I didn't respond. Caleb, we've applied to 15 places. Got rejected from all of them. I didn't respond. Caleb, please, we need more time. I put the phone down and walked away. 3 days before, Nora called and left a voicemail. Her voice cracked. She was crying. I didn't call back. 2 days before, Owen emailed. They're desperate. They've been trying, but everything is too expensive. I'm asking you to show some compassion. Give them more time. I closed the laptop. The day before the deadline, my phone filled with messages. Nora had posted something on social media, her version, where a cruel father was kicking his son out for no reason. People called me heartless, vindictive. I blocked the numbers and deleted the messages. That evening, Nora's attorney sent a final letter, requesting a court order preventing eviction. I forwarded it to Evan. He called back within an hour. This is desperation. They don't have a case. I'll file a response. The judge will deny their motion. So the deadline holds. The deadline holds. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from guilt. From anticipation of resolution. At 3 a.m, Caleb texted. Caleb, tomorrow's the deadline. Me. I know. Caleb, We don't have anywhere to go. Me? That's not my problem, Caleb. Yes, it is. Me? I clarified ownership. What you do with that is your choice, Caleb. We'll be homeless, me. You'll figure something out. Caleb. I'll never forgive you. Me. I know. The 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No message came. I turned off my phone and went back to bed. February 18th arrived clear and cold. I woke early, dressed in casual clothes, and drove to the house at 9 o'clock. The driveway was full. Caleb's car, Nora's car, a moving truck parked on the lawn. I parked on the street and watched. Through the windows, people were moving, carrying boxes, loading furniture. I got out and walked to the front door. It was open. Inside was chaos. Boxes everywhere. Furniture at odd angles. Caleb appeared carrying a box. He saw me and stopped. What are you doing here? It's my house. I wanted to see the condition. He set the box down hard. Come to make sure we're leaving? Among other things? Nora came down the stairs carrying a lamp. We're leaving. You got what you wanted. You can go now. I'll stay until you're finished. Why? To gloat? To document the condition. She shook her head. You know what? I hope this house burns down. Noted. I walked through the rooms, taking photos. Living room with marks on walls, kitchen with empty cabinets, dining room with the tables still there. It was mine. Upstairs, the bedrooms were being emptied. The master bathroom showed the tile they'd complained about, perfectly intact. I photographed everything, documentation for insurance, for records. When I came back downstairs, 3 people I didn't know were helping load. Friends. Owen was there too, carrying a box. He saw me. Jace. Owen. This what you wanted? This is what the situation required. They're moving into a motel. Did you know that? Where they move is their decision. They have nowhere else to go. That's not my responsibility. He shook his head and carried the box away. By noon, the truck was full. The house was emptier. They were leaving behind what had been there before, the dining table, the couch, various pieces I'd owned. Caleb and Nora stood in the driveway. She was crying. He had his arm around her. I walked outside, approached them. Keys, I said, holding out my hand. Caleb reached into his pocket and pulled out a key ring. He stared at it, then dropped it into my palm without meeting my eyes. House keys, mailbox key, garage remote. I checked the ring. Everything was there. Thank you. Nora laughed harshly. Thank you? That's what you say? The property is being returned. You're not human. I'm practical. Where you're staying? I asked. Motel 6 on Highway 40, Caleb said. 2 weeks paid for. You'll find something. Will we? You'll figure it out. People adapt. He looked at me. People do adapt, and I've adapted by realizing you're not my father anymore. Fathers don't do this. Fathers own property and make decisions about it. No, fathers care about their children more than being right. Sometimes caring means enforcing boundaries. That's just something cruel people say. The moving truck started. The friends climbed into cars. The caravan prepared to leave. Nora turned back. You haven't heard the last of this. We're still fighting. Fight all you want. The outcome won't change. They got in the car. Caleb didn't look back. The convoy pulled away. I stood in the driveway and watched them go. Watched the moving truck turn and disappear. Watched Caleb's car follow. Watched Owen's car bring up the rear. Then they were gone. The street was quiet. The house stood behind me, legally and definitively mine. I turned and walked back inside. The place echoed, empty of people, empty of their things. I walked through the rooms one final time, noted the scuff marks, the nail holes, all fixable. I pulled out my phone and called a real estate agent. Karen Mills. Ms. Mills, this is Jace Roard. I have a property I'd like to list. I gave her the address, described the house. I can come by tomorrow for photos. We should be able to list by end of week. Market's good. Properties in that area are moving fast. Perfect. What's your asking price? I named a figure 20% above what I'd paid. That should work. I'll see you tomorrow at 10. I hung up and stood in the empty dining room. Outside, the afternoon sun reflected off snow and made everything bright and sharp and clear. The house was mine, fully, completely, without ambiguity. I walked to the front door and locked it. The key turned smoothly. Everything working properly, everything in order, everything finally absolutely, definitively correct. I got in my car and drove away. The house receded in the mirror. By the time I reached the townhouse, Evan was calling. Jace, Nora's attorney called. They're withdrawing their motions. They're done fighting. Good. He said his clients are moving out today. They already did. Then it's over. Clean resolution. Thank you, Evan. I sat in my car as the sky deepened to blue and the streetlights came on. My phone buzzed. Owen, what you did was cruel and unnecessary. I hope someday you realize what you've cost yourself. I read it twice, then deleted it. Another message. Karen Mills. Just drove past the property. It's beautiful. This will sell fast. I went inside. Made dinner, ate at the small table, watched evening settle over the neighborhood. The house would sell. The situation would resolve into numbers on a page. Caleb would figure out his life. They'd adapt. And I'd return to the simple rhythm, work, home, days passing. The phone rang. Caleb's number. I let it ring out. Didn't listen to the voicemail, just set the phone aside. The empty chair at Christmas had been the beginning, the stack of documents at dinner, the clarification. This moment was the resolution, clean, complete, correct. The systems were functioning, the inefficiencies removed, the false assumptions gone. Everything, finally, unmistakably, mine.